Hey there guys, Mazarok here, and today we are going to be going over a 17 Nokhud Offensive that I did last night. This had 3 pugs and a friend of mine in the dungeon run. It went very, very well, and there's a lot of people that have said that they'd actually like a breakdown of the mechanics, so I am going to be doing that. Now, we decided right off the bat that we were going to be going into a bigger lust pull, and there's a few options that you can take, but this pathing one that I took right off the bat is a good option. It's one of the bigger pulls that you can do in the first start. You can also double, but I would be really, really organized because there's a lot of things that you need to actually worry about. The Beastmasters that I have here on screen, these guys do a stunnable cast called Hunt Prey. And this is actually a little nasty for your DPS and your healer, because this War Ahuna right here will then start hunting their prey. So it doesn't get cast on the tank, but will just absolutely start wrecking your DPS. So when you see your DPS taking a lot of damage here, that is one of the reasons why. There's also the longbowmen that do, they just shoot random people. That's something you gotta worry about. But they also do a rain of arrows cast, which will put little swirlies on the ground and make you have to move around a lot. There's some other mechanics in there as well, but we'll be talking about those ones in the next poll. Aside from that, the Plane Stomper has the only kickable cast really in this zone, and that is Disruptive Shout. Lance Master has them as well. That you want to worry about quite a bit. But here we have, so here we're going to go over to, I'm going to pause right here. This Horn Sounder has a Rally the Clan, and that is an absolutely terrible name for an ability. But that is the name of the ability. It is fully CCable, and it needs to be CC'd because it gives the mobs a big buff going forward, and you do not want that. But this that Lance Master, that Disrupting Shout, that is big AoE damage, and you absolutely want to be kicking those. If you can get like a monk to use Ring of Peace, DK Grips, anything like that to move these longbowmen in together, because they tend to be on opposite sides of the pack, they are absolutely terrible to deal with, and they're not fun. This is this week's route, so Spiteful Grievous. So I tend to like to bounce around a little bit more using the dragon riding here to get some of the bigger pulls and to have CDs flow better. But because of Spiteful, you're constantly in combat, so getting in and out of combat to dragon ride is a little bit more of a nuisance. So with here, I went with a little bit more of a straightforward pathing where we did not have to dragon ride, and the pulls kind of all chained towards one another a little bit more and a little bit better. Now, these War Spears right there, they love to charge your DPS and your healers, and they hurt. The Horn Sounders, Rally the Clan, you got to take care of those. But then as well, these War Spears have a Tank Buster. Now, we're going to go back here just a second. So here, Hunt Prey, I stopped it with Shield Charge. Rally the Clan, I got it with Stormbolt. But then we're going to see these War Spears have a nasty tank bleed called Pierce. This one here is actually going to go off. And on its own, it's not too bad. Like, 1 stack is very manageable for pretty much any tank. The problem is there are some pulls that do multiple stacks of this bleed and really, really start to chunk, and it's not fun to deal with. And there is a pull later on that I did because I trusted my healer enough to keep me up, and I trusted myself enough to know I could be able to handle a couple of stacks and kite them off if I needed to. But the thing with bleeds is they hurt. Very good time to be a dwarf in this dungeon, by the way, and just make your life a lot easier. Here we're going to go chaining in again. So War Spears will hit your DPS and will pierce you. That's that swift stab where they run away. Horn Sounders, Rally the Clan. I cannot stress this enough. That needs to be CC'd. Your life is going to get so much easier when you can. And of course, you want to, the Hunt Prey is one that you want to absolutely, there's a lot of stops in this one and only one real kick in this zone. Now, while we're finishing this, please do like, comment, subscribe. Goes such a long way towards helping out the channel. Thank you, everybody, for all the support so far. If there's any weak auras or LVY setups that you see, you can get them for free in my Discord down below. But it's in the weak auras channel. You got to go digging a little bit. It's a very popular channel. But if you want one easy to access document with everything that's always updated to its finest, my patrons get that just for signing up for Patreon and showing their support. But there's also a lot of stuff like early access stuff. This video is actually going to be coming out for them Sunday, January 15th, and I'm not putting this one out on YouTube until Wednesday, the next Wednesday. So if you want early access stuff, my patrons get that as well. So here, then we move up here. Now, my goal in this first area is to get as much count as I can. And with the route that I have here, I can get 36% very easily because the Tempest zone was really, really unpleasant. This is a little bit more of a free flow video. So if you've watched this far, there are timestamps for the zones. So if you want to skip towards the zones, you can just go through the timestamps and, check them out. The bosses aren't going to be anywhere near as difficult to cover as the trash. Now, this pack here is actually very dangerous. It's only a 3-pack, but it is dangerous. As you see here, it wiped the hunter because he got in first and got both of the swift stabs pretty much immediately. But also, the war spears having 2 of these will stack up that bleed very, very quickly with the pierce, like I had said earlier, and they'll always like to run off, so this is a little bit more of a better stack one if you can, but that also leaves you less time to stun off the swift stabs. As you see here, I start getting 2 stacks of the bleed, and I know I can deal with it. I was comfortable with it, but you might want to get your count somewhere else if you have to. That's kind of, if you got to worry about. Now, this pack here is particularly nasty for the reason that we talked about just earlier, is the 2 war spears. There is a lot of direct ongoing DPS and healer damage, as well as yourself with the stacking pierce if you do not CC it. As well, you have the Huntmaster, lots of movement, and the Longbowmans, who will make having to move around slightly unpleasant. That's kind of how it works from time to time. But as you see here, now I've got 2 stacks of the bleed, and I think I am going to get a 3rd. No, I start kiting away. That's what I did there. And luckily they chose me, so there is ways to bait the war spears, apparently. But yeah, so this is definitely a dangerous pack and a dangerous mob. But we're going to end here with 36%, because I love skipping all of the trash at the end. I'm going to be showing you the skip that I use. I think it's fairly common knowledge now, but we're going to be going from there. So yeah, lots of trash to be done here, but this is why we kind of lust first, get a quick lust in, make life a little bit easier, especially for those big pats. And like I had said earlier, start with the pats around, because if you start with the ones by the ballista, the pats are going to come in, and it always becomes a nightmare. Always start with the pats. Now, Granyth is very easy in terms of boss. There's nothing really too complicated about him. He has the adds. This I save Stormbolt, I save Shield Charge, I save Shockwave, and I always try, if I notice it coming in from like a direction off coming towards me, I will charge it, because charging actually roots the mob in place. So that just aids the CC chain that can go along with it, and it can go a long way. So here, as right when it's in my path, I hit Shockwave, get the stun off, and just get the stops going and apply my bleeds and everything. Now we had Ursal's Vortex. There are a lot of things that can be used for this ad. Slappy Hands, Hodge, Ursal's Vortex, Typhoon. There's a billion things that can be used here. This is really, really good for ad management. And then obviously have a range, hit the ballista, and, interrupt eruption. But aside from that, there's not a whole lot to this boss that you kind of really need to worry about. It's a lot of ad management, and any of the CC that you can bring to a dungeon to help with that ad management, the better, because you do not want him dismantling those ballista and that eruption cast going off and all of that fun stuff, right? That's not something that you want. But it's just kind of a rinse and repeat fight, and then we go from there. So we're going to be moving up we're going to be going directly towards Raging Tempest. Now, this is always start with the totems. The totems have to die as quick as possible. They are not fun. They're not AoE'd that well, so you have to target them. Like, as you see here, I'm thunderclapping, and Rend is not being applied to it, but there are some things to kick. Stormbolt by the Stormcallers is something that you guys want to chain kick whenever you can. Call out your kicks. They can get really, really nasty on fortified weeks. Primalist Arcblade has this arcing strike that you it is a frontal, so that's something that you want to try and aim away from your group, stay put, but it's not something that in lower keys will one-shot. It's not one of those frontals that if they're just nearby, they're going to die. There are definitely some, but that's not one of them, but you can just lower DPS damage if that's the case. Those adds there are great for your purges, arcane torrents, all of that fun stuff. They will just instantly die from literally a tick of any damage if you apply it that way. Now, this pack here, these packs are severely nasty. There's a lot of things that really truck and really hurt and are fun. Lots of Stormbolt cast to kick. The Stormcallers have Totemic Overload, which is not fun, but there is there's two in particular. The Storm Speakers will have Tempest and Summon Squall. Summon Squall is what hurts you as a tank. That is one thing you absolutely want to be kicking as much as possible. They truck us, and if you can just not have the Summon Squall go off, all the better. And you want to make sure that Tempest doesn't go off either. Watch out for the arcing strikes. As you see here, our Feral Druid does take a tick of the arcing swipe. It does hurt. There will be a key level where that is a one-shot, but luckily it's not a 17 just yet, right? This Thunder Beast, this is actually a rather deceiving pack as well. These Storm Shields are actually what truck you as a tank, not the Thunder Beast. The Storm Shields are actually CCable, so you don't have to worry about it. So you do have to worry about them, but this is something that towards the end of a mob, you see here my health just drops tremendously. You do want to be purging off those shields if you can. Demon Hunters and Shamans can purge off those shields, as well as other classes with Dispel Magic with Priests, and there's a long list. But getting rid of those shields is something you absolutely want to be doing, but those Storm Shields are what's trucking you, not that Thunder Beast, and they are really, really nasty. So this is more of a damage against me worry than it is a damage against my party. So I let kind of healing cooldowns come around by pulling this pack. This is a good time to kind of watch your healer CDs, make sure they can come up, because this next pull up here, they just get progressively nastier and nastier. Like just all around nasty. But yeah, so Stormcaller, Stormbolts, Tempest, the unstable Squall Surges are not fun. You have to, they are going to truck you. This is great for Spell Reflect if you're in an organized group and you get targeted by one of the Stormbolts. You can deal very good damage with that. See here, I tried to kick the Summon Squall, did not work. They don't have a lot of HP, but their Surge cast really, really hurts and adds another kick to the CC chain that you just don't need to be dealing with right now, especially with how hard these hurt. Or, me and the healer are each healing for 26 and 29k respectively on this, and you can see how much this hurts. So wherever you can avoid avoidable damage is what you want to be doing, and then just moving forward from there. Really, really nasty, and kind of move along. Here we're going to kill the Shade, and because we want to Dragon Ride up. Although you could go up the side here. I do end up pulling those two Storm Shields just for percent and allow for big DPS cooldowns to come back, because that's something that you obviously want to do. But this pack is, of course, again, it's the Arcing Blade, the Summon Squall, the Tempest. Really, really nasty all around. And lots of frontals, lots of kicks. Just a lot of things to worry about. Luckily, Tempest can be hard CC'd as well. So if you want to save your kicks for the actual Stormcaller, which is named, every one of those packs has a named Stormcaller. You can, and then you can CC off the Tempest and the big cast, the Summon Squalls and things like that. There are rotations that you can do, but optimizing your CC chains, Intimidating Shout, Stormbolts, Stormbolt, Shockwave, Shield Charge, things like that is really, really good. Now, these here, these are, I know, are going to go down more slowly and are going to truck me. There's very little outgoing DPS damage, so our healer doesn't have to blow any major cooldowns. Just kind of make sure they heal me up here and there. But there is some spikes. There is some spikes, as you see here. The hunter just took some damage, but I actually think that was from a Spiteful. Actually, he's just not being touched. He's got 2 stacks of Grievous on him. That's why. 3 stacks of Grievous on him. It just kind of, it's being chained up. So here, there we go. But these do truck you, especially the lower. I don't know why the lower health they have, but here I just start kiting them a little bit and taking care of them. But this allows DPS CDs to come back and really work around and have a good time. Yeah, I know. Now this boss here is an absolute healer check. As the tank, you want to let your healer get 10 balls. Let him ball nubbling to the extremes. He's gotta eat them all up. He or she don't matter, because they are not going to be able to heal this fight in higher keys without that buff. This guy does truck, so you want to play a little bit more defensively. Damage does matter here, of course, but we're going to lust. I think we're lusting on the first phase. No, we're lusting right now. As you can see here, warriors can spell reflect that wind burst. Wind burst is something that happens when you get too far away from the boss, so if you are not a warrior, you pretty much want to stay within boss range the entire time. Aside from that, as the tank, make sure that, best as you can, make sure none of the balls come in. The balls are a healing and damage increase, so this is something that you want to make sure that you grab and not let the boss get. But these are very, very important for your healer and your DPS to have. Our healer here actually cranked and did an amazing job. I commented this after the poll was done, but he did a really, really good job. Here I'm planning around my Spell Reflex, because the Spell Reflecting the Wind Burst is actually pretty big damage, but this is a good boss to make sure you have health pots, your lock rocks, to work your defensives around. Hit your spell reflex, hit your spell blocks whenever you need to. AMZ, AMS, whatever you got, you want to make sure you do it. Now here, we got ourselves into a little bit of trouble, but luckily we got out of it pretty quickly. Good old heroic leap kind of saved the day there, and some strong heals. But yeah, so this is 17. This is non-tyrannical, by the way. This is fortified. So this guy trucks on tyrannical, so this is something that you really, really want to make sure you're doing right, and you're not letting any of the balls hit him, because that increased damage he does really, really does hurt. But aside from that, the Raging Tempest does go down. We have solid healing all around, and this is really not this is a DPS and healer check. All you got to do as a tank is just make sure that, you know, none of the balls get in, and you're in range and live. That's all you got to do. I commented on the Paladin's heals, banger heals, bud, and thank you very much. But next, we are going to be going over to Teera and Meeruk. That area there. This is the area where I like to get the rest of my count. And I have I've kind of devised a little bit of a route with some of the easier pulls, aside from just the nipple hills. Now, the first thing that I do when I come here is I actually grab these birds right there. I try and fly right through them. Somehow I miss them. But these birds will always pull into one of the packs on the hill. Always. Don't know why. They just always do it. So here's what I like to do, is I actually do like to grab them with this pull here, because everything is easily CCable, and you only have one kick to worry about. So this is where Shockwave, Shadow Furies, any kind of group stun that you have access to, your cap totems, is very, very strong. And this is not a difficult pull to pull off. It's just it's watching where you could get blown about, and rotating your stuns. But this is not the most difficult portion to pull off. But when those 3 birds enter the nipple hill pulls, I really don't know what to call them. They're all nipples. I guess that's what we're gonna call them. They can really send things sideways. Now here, I didn't really have like a plan. Like I knew where I wanted to get my count. I just didn't know in what order I wanted to get that count from, because it's a little bit more free flow. Sorry. There's not a whole lot to worry about here as the tank, but there are some key things that you do have to worry about. You want to make sure that those death bolt volleys are getting kicked. There are Deathbolt casts that can be kicked or CC'd, but then there's also the movement stuff with the second winds being blown about. But these warriors do have a Mortal Strike effect, which will reduce the healing that you receive. So this is where rotating your defensives to just take the least amount of damage possible is really, really good. You can CC the Mortal Strike effect, especially if you're a Blood DK. This is something that you're going to want to be doing as much as possible because you like your healing. That's your active mitigation, right? You do not want to be taking these, but as a warrior, your whole goal is to just not take damage anyway. Now, when I get my count here, I tend to favor these beast collar pulls with the animals because they're a lot easier to deal with than if you have more of the centaurs. More casts to kick, more CC chains that you got to worry about, and these are kind of actually a lot easier. And if you just kind of generally, right? So in higher keys, you're going to have to start double and triple pulling a lot of these. But right now, for the 17 range, as long as nobody's dying and you're properly rotating your CCs and your kicks, this is a fairly easy area to do and to get your count. Again, because of Spiteful, I'm just heroic leaping onto the next pack and trying to get around that way to avoid useless time spent. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be waiting for Spitefuls to go down when we can just run away from them and start the next pack. But when you are working with dragon riding and you're able to mount directly after a pull's done, there are some more efficient ways to do this, and that's kind of all dependent on your party and your CCs and your cooldowns, right? Because if you have a lot of big cooldowns in your party and not a lot of small cooldowns, that's something you got to worry about. But with the group that we have here, it worked really, really well within the chaining and kind of how to work it out. Everybody had their time to shine, and honestly, this was a really, really fun key to do. This Shatter Soul this will actually target a DPS player. This can target you as the tank if nobody else is around and you go in too quick ahead, but you're going to have to find your soul after the cast, so that's something that you might have to worry about. But that's why if you see your DPS running around and you're worried about frontals from the second winds or anything like that, it targets random players, but you try and do your best to kind of keep things grouped and keep things aimed whichever way you can. But yeah, aside from that, the pulls on Nipple Hills are kind of Nipple Hill is kind of all pretty easy. I mean, you just came out of the Raging Tempest area, so I'm not saying that these pulls are easy, just in comparison to the Raging Tempest area, these pulls actually are kind of easy. Now here I actually accidentally shield charged into one of the Thundering stuns. That was totally my bad, but is kind of what it is. These Corruptors have a Deathbolt cast that you want to kick. The Desecrated Ahuna have that nice big Deathbolt volley that you want to make sure gets kicked. And you want to CC chain where you can to stop the Mortal Strike effects and things like that. The Death Speakers have that Chant of the Dead, which is really, really not fun. And on the hill, it has a little bit of a difficult visuals because Z-axes and hills don't always work very, very well. But it's the Soul Harvesters that have the Deathbolt volley. That's the really important thing to kick. The Deathbolt hurts, but the Deathbolt volley hurts everyone. So that's one thing that you really, really do want to worry about. And then here we're going to continue on getting our count. Now, these aren't animals. This is actually kind of a difficult pull. 4 tanks if you do not work things around. There's 2 Mystics, there's a Death Speaker, and 2 Warriors. So the Mortal Strike effects can mount up and can be harsh, but we were doing really, really good. I trusted my healer. There's also another animal pack that you see up there in the corner. You can grab that if you want for your count as well. But this is, with the way that we were working, this was actually a pretty easy pull for us, and I really wasn't worried at all. Very, very happy with the way that I had to rotate my defensives and the way that I did. It's just a matter of CCing the Mortal Strikes. Now here I ended up getting 2 on me, but I wasn't taking any damage anyway, and it was the end of the pull, so I really wasn't worried about it, and I didn't want to use my waste my Stormbolt on my Shockwave, which I had used earlier actually, but I didn't want to use my Stormbolt on that when I knew I was going to need it coming up here at some point very, very soon. But yeah, no, so this is continually the same thing. There is a CCable Necrotic Eruption. This I missed, but this is something that you absolutely want to CC whenever you can. It's not kickable, it's CCable though. But this makes all of this a lot easier to work with and all that fun jazz. But yeah, so up next is Teera and Meeruk. So Teera and Meeruk, we will have to go up again here, and perfect. So this is a fairly easy boss fight at the 17 range. It's just kind of a rinse and repeat. Teera likes to leap away, so you want to charge, you want to leap, you want to do all the things that you can to keep them together, because the further they are apart, the more they get this stacking buff, right? So as you see there, I went the wrong way on my leap, or when I was leaving the fear, sorry, and they got away and they ended up getting 5 stacks. The more stacks they have, the more damage they do, and that can truck the party. So your goal as a tank is to try and manage to keep them together at all times. So the moment Lyra is bolting away, you want to get them close together again. That's literally your whole goal as a tank on this fight. Get away for the fears. Whenever he does the fears, there's always one of the leaps away. So this is where you want to, pre-aim, and she always faces in the direction where she's leaping. So you do have time to react to it. Stay out of those as well. But as you see here, I did a terrible job because of the eruptions, and they're actually getting a crazy amount of stacks, and just one hit trucked me here and ended up trucking the hunter, and that was my bad because I poorly moved them during the eruptions where I should have gone behind them to bring them together, but that is kind of unfortunate. Those things happen, and these are learning moments. So as you see here, she's spirit leaping. You can see the direction she's going to go. And warriors, she will spirit leap out of your max charge range, but as long as you charge while she is range, you will end up where she ends up most of the time. So that is something that you guys can work with and do and all of the fun stuff. Now here I have a mouse over macro for my charge, and I accidentally charged Meeruk instead of Teera. And there we have the eruption. So you see these stacks going off. I managed to bait this one better to get him to come in and reset his stacks. But here you see they're just far enough where they're getting quite a few more stacks. But I already have my heroic leap planned. I see where she's going, and I'm already going at it to make sure that there's the least amount of possible stacks that can happen. But that is Teera and Meeruk. Up next is basically the skip. So when you do the skip, you hug the left side right here, and you just literally burn all of your vigor, getting up to this spot up here. You can also go here if you want, but you got to dodge a few more enemies by doing that. But up here, you can literally just land pretty safely, pretty easily. Boom, done. And you have no mobs in your way that you need to worry about at all. And you can quite literally just walk in, walk around. You have free access, and so here we have our 94% count. These guys are worth about 3% each, so very, very easily done. But yeah, so these guys, Balakar and Batak, one has a big frontal and a leap, and the other one has a kick that you got to worry about. But aside from that, positioning here matters, but the thing is DPS positioning matters just as much as yours, because you want to try and make sure that they don't get baited into the boss. Now here, what I am doing with this view here is I can actually see this pat coming in. So what I'm going to want to do, if it does happen, now this doesn't happen here, is if the boss gets pulled, I'm immediately going to taunt, and I can rush up here, or I can rush up in this direction there. But here I'm constantly looking around. I'm looking at these paths to see where I can go and where I have to go just in case, because as you see here, he charged, and now here I actually thought we were going to pull the boss, but we managed to kind of pull him away. But having a quick exit strategy and knowing where the mobs are padding is very, very key here for you as a tank, and to make this run a lot easier. It has happened where quite literally, like, I've seen the boss get pulled, I'm immediately heroic throw taunt, and I'm leaping away, and he gets reset easily before any real mechanics happen. And they're like, oh man, like, good quick thinking. I'm like, dude, I was thinking about that. I was planning on that happening at the start of this 2-pull. Don't you worry about it. But aside from that, you want to make sure that you kick, you avoid the spears, you kick the blood curdling, and try and keep them around the center area, because he does like to charge off into nowhere land. And the last thing that you want is them pulling more mobs. It's safer to accidentally pull the boss, which is resettable, than it is to accidentally pull one of those packs, because those packs are nasty. They have deadly shock cast, deadly thunder cast that are really very difficult to deal with. P1 of Balakar Khan is fairly, tank and spank. There's not a whole lot of mechanics to worry about. You have the Rending Strike, which does put a nasty bleed on you. So that is something that you're going to have to deal with. And as you can see here, this bleed on a Prot Warrior is kind of chunky with Grievous added onto it. Here we have the DPS properly baiting the spear throws away from anything and kind of keeping things nicely tied up. The DPS did a very, very good job here, as well as the healer, at just, keeping everybody up, using defensives. We had very, very few deaths. At this point in time, we only have 2 deaths in the entire run, and we still have, we still had 10 minutes, really, at the boss pool around that time to clear the dungeon and go around. Now, one of the favorite things that I've liked to do here is actually lust on the trash if there's no blood decay. On my warrior, I don't have a great way to keep everything up, to keep everything grouped, and everything sparsed around like that is very difficult, but if there's a DK, they can just sloppy hands this. So here, I definitely do try, but if you can CC the 2 adds, Imprison, Frost Trap, whatever you got that can hard CC for long periods of time is really, really good and really, really easy. Now here I lost threat on that, and I'm kind of mad at myself for having done that, but that does happen. But we do manage to lust through, break through, and then immediately use the rest of our lust on Balakar Khan in P2. P2 is a little bit different. His MO changes up a little bit. Conductive Strike, which is spell reflectable, by the way, and AMSable, puts a dot on you that needs to be dispelled by the healer, and it causes the next Thunder Strike to deal 500% more damage to you. And as a tank without a heavy defensive, and I mean heavy defensive, will one-clap you at these level of keys. So this is something you want to try and spell reflect every single one, but sometimes the spell queuing is a little weird. So you want to worry about that. Now here, our Hunter just got clapped by that mechanic. The Static Shock is going to group everybody together. You can use that to clear Thundering if your timings are right and you trust your party. But yeah, really this is just a matter of avoid the swirlies, keep things out of the little storm areas. Aim your static spears properly. This is an insanely good job by our druid here. I heroic leaped off at the wrong place, and I'm trying to move back around. That was my bad, but we already had the boss done, and that is Nokhud Offensive. I was really, really happy with this key. I liked my damage. I liked the way that everything kind of flowed, but that is it. So thank you to my patrons for making videos like this happen. I cannot do it without the support of people like you. If you want to see more types of styles of dungeon runs and breakdowns like this, let me know. We'll love to hear you guys in the comment section down below. And also, do you guys have any other tips? Anything that you learned? Anything weird that, that might be niche or not entirely common knowledge? I would also love to hear that in the comment section down below. Aside from that, have yourselves a good one, and thank you for watching. Happy tanking.